Matt Robison, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Ben. Great to be back.
I think this is our 250th episode, which is firstly crazy. But when I knew 250 was coming up, there was only one man I wanted on the podcast. Unfortunately, Mark Benioff didn't reply to my email, so here you are.
Next best thing.
That's it. How you been?
Really good. Yeah. 2025, and excited to be on your 250th podcast. I think it was one of your early ones, and then now on this one, and great journey.
Yeah, a lot's changed over those years. That was one of our first, and also we were doing them face-to-face back then, pre-COVID, in a little office in WeWork, which was cool. And yeah, at that time, it was we were kind of exploring a lot of different things for you personally, because it was more around how you transitioned into the Salesforce world and things like that. And obviously now you're running a product company solving problems for Salesforce customers. So a bit of a whirlwind number of years.
I think I've been through every possible role and capability in the ecosystem from coming through. So it's great to be where we are.
Yeah, nice. So if anyone hasn't seen your journey online, we won't talk about the kind of employment time because I really want to focus in on what you've been doing more recently. But tell me about the current business for anyone that doesn't know what the problem is you solve, what the product is.
Yeah, so it's App Exchange product on the Salesforce App Exchange. So the journey through all of the security reviews and all of those fun, which I think was kind of our last podcast, was probably starting to talk about, those early parts of those journeys and getting through that. But we're now hit a great milestone of 1 year. So it's another exciting, your 250th and our 1 year. We left and launched 100% out on this as the full-time focus of Lightbox Logic. And so we've just hit 1 year now, which is very exciting.
Awesome. So, last time you were on, we spoke about that journey of launching a business, going through the App Exchange review, some of the considerations for you and where the idea came from, things like that. So I want to focus on between then and now. What have the milestones been that you were kind of striving towards before the 1 year mark, and what have you kind of ticked off along the way?
I kind of equated a little bit like having a baby, and you'll kind of attest to this in those worlds. Anyone's out there, it's all about the firsts with these milestones and what you hit. So the milestones, we've hit 1 year. I mean, I think that's probably, if you want any milestone, that's probably our biggest one, because we set a milestone of where would we hit. We were always going to give it at least a 1 year journey, and we then had milestones that we need to hit within that to see where we go. Do we throw it all in, go back to normal? Does it become a part-time? It's offset. So I think the biggest milestone is it's been wildly successful, and there's no turning back. And 2025 and beyond will be Lightbox on its own. The milestones that we kind of had that we set was we got our first paying customer. That was obviously one of the biggest ones, because that proves your business model, your product, what you're doing, because you can have the best idea in the world and launch it successfully, but if you don't have any customers that are willing to pay for it, then you don't have a business. So, we got our first customer. We've just surpassed 10 customers, which was kind of like could we get it to 10, kind of shows scalability. Was the one customer just a bit of a luck one, or can you scale it? So we hit 10, so I think we've proven the scalability of it. The other, I think, milestone is we've been able to do it because obviously one of the objectives was to do this more as a lifestyle business rather than let's grow a 50, 100 employee product company. So can you scale to those levels without having to hire lots of employees for customer support, product development, sales? So I think the other milestone we've kind of hit is we've hit this milestone mostly just with myself as a full-time employee, with some contractors and some other little bits of me, but mostly just myself as the full-time employee, which, master, and we have just employed our first employee as well, part-time, to help with some more of the business side of the world, which is another big milestone that we've kind of hit.
Yeah, awesome. So a year in, you're not going to go back to being part-time and focus on other things. You're here to stay.
We've made it, Lightbox here to stay, and Marketing Cloud Connect Toolbox is, has made that work.
Awesome. So one thing you hear a lot about as a business owner is like the importance of working on the business and not just in the business. And I'm a nightmare for this because I just work in the business, right? Like day to day, you're just putting out fires, you're trying to solve problems. And I think like maybe it's unfair to ask this only a year in, because like the business is still like forming, right? In terms of like you're selling, you're trying to get more customers. You've got 10, now you're looking at 11, 12, 13, right? So you constantly, but are you popping your head up at all to go, right, as a business, like working on it, not just like doing day to day build and getting customers and customer success and all of that stuff? Are you able now to come up and look at how you build the business?
I think year one, like you said, is just in the business. I think you set a little bit of a vision at the start of kind of what you want to go, and then I think to a certain degree that gets thrown out the window day one when you start going, because it's like, okay, what's the next priority on the list? You've got loose priority lists, but you're always, especially I think when you're small and you don't have a lot of people, you're developing quickly your sales, your marketing, you're trying to get contracts out the door, you've got policies and legal things. So I think year one has been very in the business and far less on the business. I think bringing somebody in to the business to help will change a little bit of that, because a lot of the day-to-days that, paying invoices and accounts and BASs and those can start to lift off my plate and work a little bit more on the business. Saying that, with the vision of trying to keep the business small and not grow, I think I'll always be in the business. I will always be hands-on. There's not really that is all I do is on the business. Obviously, if you grow, that's what you have to do. You're going to become the CEO. You should be working most of your time on the business because you need to enable everybody else to be in the business. But I think, and you'll know that you've been doing this for a lot longer than I have as out on your own. But I think a large part of my role in this will always still be in the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? With that, like you've purposefully, you want to keep the business small. Like you don't have these grand aspirations to have a massive team. If you think of recruitment, like people tend to measure the success of a recruitment business by how many staff they have. But I guess it's different in the product world, right? Like there's these metrics, I guess, that people are striving towards in recruitment, and it's all about having a massive number of salespeople selling on the phones, generating business. But to you, it doesn't really matter like how many people are working in the business. It's more how many customers you have, right? Because the product is the product.
And I think it's probably even more than just how many customers you got, it's revenue.
Of course.
So part of it is, how much revenue you're getting per customer. Because if you've got 100 customers, that comes with a lot of customer support, that's more challenging than having a few customers with little support. So there's a lot of things that come into, I think, how scalable and successful, and depending on what type of business you're looking for. And it also depends on what you want to do with those. So 100 customers might be great, even if it's small value, if you're then planning on upselling into those. So you've built those relationships and you can upsell. So I think product companies are slightly different in terms of what I would think of success metrics than, say, a recruitment or even a professional services company, which is essentially your dollars in how many projects you can get and how many staff you've got. Whereas a product company, to a certain degree, it's the success of a product and then the scalability. So you're building one thing that you can then scale. So, and I think that's where, as a product company, we can continue on because we've proven the product sells and we can get those customers, and the vision of not having to scale huge teams to support what that looks like.
Yeah, actually, that's so true. I've seen things on LinkedIn before about like product companies are basically judged on the annual recurring revenue per head. So like if you can keep your staff numbers down, but your recurring revenue growing, that's an attractive business.
With profitability at the end of the day. So if you sell the product for $100 a month and you've got 100 customers, and that means you need, 30 staff, then your profitability is not going to be great. Business have looked a little bit differently. We had a big shift in the market with Salesforce. Everyone started letting go and zeros and everything because the market started to look and go, hang on, ARR, or your annual revenue, should not be your only focus, because it's great that you might be getting $1 million a year revenue, but if it's costing you, $950,000 to support that revenue, well, there's not a lot of profit. So I think that's an important thing in terms of what that success looks like. Our vision is to try and have the revenue there to support, but without the big overheads that come with that.
Mm-hmm. There's obviously other businesses that are very similar to yours in terms of like being reliant to a degree on the Salesforce platform, right? Because without the Salesforce platform, there is no product. It's not that you're system agnostic and you can pick it up and move it to Microsoft Dynamics or whatnot now, like it's a Salesforce product. So for you, being across the Salesforce roadmap and understanding changes that are coming, how that will impact your product is absolutely essential. And I guess it's more than just reading release notes, right? In terms of knowing how you need to adapt and pivot, if at all. How do you stay across that? And is that one of the things that I guess potentially does give you sleepless nights?
Yeah, and I think it's a different look on the world, because it used to be release notes and every page of a release note. And I used to love those kind of things. There's a little bit less these days, especially having a product that's less reliant on what features did Sales Cloud get and things. Still good to be across them, especially the technical sides within Apex, or new features or new things that they're putting out that you can help, scale or do things with your product. But I think it's for us, it's the broader roadmap of Salesforce themselves and what they are doing. We've got Data Cloud, we've got Agentforce, we've got so many different pieces that impact our world. The key thing for us is staying relevant. So there are always problems to solve. I think we will always be focused around, I call it the triangle at the moment. You've got Salesforce, which is kind of your CRM data. You've got like a marketing platform. We specialize with marketing cloud engagement. And then you've got Data Cloud. But you've got this triangle of 3 systems. Some of it marketing cloud core, where that comes in and how that kind of changes that a bit. There's always problems. There's always challenges that people want to solve. And I think we've kind of got 3 pillars that we're looking at for the business. And one of them is relevance. We want to stay relevant. So even if some of our product isn't relevant anymore, to make sure we've got other parts that still stay relevant to the customers.
Mm-hmm. Do you have relationship in at the product level in the areas in which you play? Like, are you able to kind of get any kind of information ahead of time, or is it you just have to be quite reactive to any changes that you see coming?
I'll say the App Exchange partner world doesn't give you really any doors into any things where blind or as have as much visibility as anybody else. I'm fortunate that I have a lot of people to network with. So I know a lot of people in roles that have visibility into a lot of these kind of things. So I lean on them in terms of, what do you see the direction, what's going on? I would say I get insights maybe more than just somebody that is just seeing on the internet and looking. But certainly just being an App Exchange partner and playing in this space doesn't give you some kind of special, like, here's your partner team to work within a product team or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So what haven't you enjoyed over the last year? There must be some things that haven't been smooth sailing or as enjoyable as you'd like them to be.
The biggest part is the business side that comes with it, in terms of we've got an outlet. So we've got to pay Salesforce with all our customers. We've got, legal that have to put together the policies. And so there's a lot of business things that come around those. I think I kind of found them exciting and fun at the start. And, you feel like you're now running a legitimate business, but that wears thin when you've got to, reconcile all the books against all of your invoices and do all of these, paying your BAS and your supers and all of these kind of things. Now, I brought somebody in to now help with that side. So the objective from here with that as well is to take, what are the parts that I am enjoying and what are the parts that I'm not enjoying? So a big part of, bringing somebody in is to help that. And so I can focus more on that. Probably the other part outside, and that's probably an obvious one, because I think that's for most business, more from a product side and the sales and everything. I think the part that is the procurement cycle of a sales process. So you speak to somebody, we put in a trial. Generally, the reaction is very, very good. Once we're at that stage, it's generally inevitable it will become a sale. But once the business agrees on that, and often even have signed off on a budget, there's a long cycle then that you've got to go through in terms of risk assessments, which are often hundreds of questions of multiple choices around your business. And so many are so irrelevant these days. legal negotiating master service agreements on minute points and things like that is very time consuming. That's probably the other part that I enjoy less. I love that cycle up until that. And then when we hit procurement, we go, okay, now we've got to go through all the formal processes. That can get a little mundane.
Would you say like the sales cycle has been an area you found like harder to kind of adapt to and I guess learn how to manage a sales cycle? Would you class yourself as a salesperson now?
I would call myself as a salesperson now because I've gone through the pains of a salesperson of hearing maybe next quarter.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one that, any salesperson will know all too well. It's the one you don't want. We just literally had one that was, we thought like I would have in Salesforce, marked as 80% we're closing and then told there's budgets and it's like actually CFO said, no, we'll have to revisit this next quarter. I think that's kind of the scars as a real salesperson of that. But I think the hardest part of it for me, because I've been in pre-sales, so whether it's in consultancies and you're coming in to help with projects, with architecture or helping the AE, the actual salesperson, do that. But having to do that role has probably been the hardest one, constantly making sure that you're organizing the next meeting. And I think the hardest part of it for me, or probably a part that I wasn't expecting the most and the most challenging, is, like I was talking before, it's the time. So we've had 2 deals that we really started talking right at the beginning, and we've only just closed them. So we're talking 9 months. It was two deals that took 9 months to close. And I'm not talking they just disappeared for 9 months. There was, I think the business was happy after trial and budgets within a month, but that it can just take so long. I thought the hard part was going to be, yes, the business wants it. And then, they sign, and then, next month you've got some revenue coming in, and it's been so far from that. It's been the getting in and the business wanting it and saying, yes, we want it, has been the easy part. It's the getting the right stakeholders to sign up. Did you have all of the right stakeholders in the early discussion? So a bigger challenge of these big 9 months one was every month a new stakeholder would pop up that didn't know about it. Because when you're talking large enterprises, it's like, even when you ask, is everybody okay? Yes. And then somehow somebody finds wind of this project and they're like, I didn't know about that. All of a sudden, you're basically starting from fresh again on a new stakeholder, I think. And you learn from those to make sure that you can get the right people in the room early enough. But the time of the sales cycle from initial engagement through to even probably seeing money in a bank account, which is obviously from a business, ultimately what you need to keep going, is just so much longer than I was ever expecting.
Have you been ghosted yet?
Yeah.
I was going to say, you can't say you're a salesperson until you've been ghosted, but you have. So welcome to the world of sales.
I think one of my very first leads that I had was red hot. I was like, I would have banked on it. We're going, and then just literally could not get a word from them. I think that it's inevitable. You're not on their priority list, and you just kind of, or you were at one moment, and then for some reason business priorities changes. I probably haven't been as ghosted as much as I should have, and that's probably because one of the downsides from my side, because I would still call myself a true salesman, because I don't have that dogged nature of I'm not going to leave you alone until you respond to me type thing.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit. If I engage with you and you engage back and we're having an active conversation, great. As soon as you start going quiet, there's enough prospects on my list to work through that I don't have time to constantly keep following up. So probably the nature that I haven't been as ghosted as much as I should is a problem in the sales cycle, because I'm not as active as I should. But yeah, I mean, ghosting I think is inevitable. I think it's frustrating when you think they're really keen. They're going to go, their reactions in the meetings where this is great, we're going to talk to other people, and then you just can't hear from them again.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. Is visibility your biggest challenge? Because like you said, you've got 10 customers, but when people trial it, it's often successful. You're not getting ghosted all the time. So people like what they see, but it's a loud marketplace, right? The Salesforce world. It's like, I guess for you, if you could probably sign up a whole load of customers if they see it and use it, but it's like SEO would be expensive. Google advertising, all of that stuff is expensive. Like, is it at the moment? It's reliant on word of mouth, right? It's connections. Like you mentioned, you've got a long prospect of leads, but where are they coming from? Like, how does that lead flow come to you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the big focuses of 25, because last year was about scaling to a point. I didn't want to grow too quickly with customers, because one of our other things is I want a really happy customer base. And you can only do that by making sure that you can solve things quickly. And so I pride, and I think that's coming from the technical project world versus a sales world. I've got very much, I would focus more on, if a customer said, we've got a problem, that needs to be solved by tomorrow. That's my ethos of kind of my thing. If we need to work all night, kind of thing on solving it, versus, and I would drop future prospects to make sure existing customers are happy. It's probably an ingrained thing from me of the direction of where we want to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I think that's the right thing, especially like you said, you've not got a massive team, right? So you can only be spread so far, and churn is the thing that would impact the business the greatest. You're in a comfortable position now, right? You don't want to start seeing companies churn and then you're back to the drawing board. Now, one thing I know about you, and it's not just because having spent a lot of time with you at different events, but a lot of people used to think you came to Trailhead Tuesday just for the pizza, just for the beers. But I actually know you, and I know you're a social being. You like being around others. You're personable. You like being out there chatting, making connections. So how have you actually found like not having that? Like, you work for yourself, you work at home. You've got your setup at home, like you're not around other people day to day. Like, how is that? Obviously, you've got your family there and friends and whatnot, but you're not on projects. You're not like in the trenches with others. How do you find that? How have you managed that kind of social aspect or potential impact on mental health?
One thing for me is I've actually always almost had some form of a remote or hybrid type roles for the last 20 years. So I did startup for 10 years through the 2000s in my 20s, and there was always elements of remote. So I don't think it's unusual for me to be like this. There's a couple things that I've done to help with that. And I think one is I still try and attend events. So I love the events. Co-leader of the Gold Coast user group, we try and catch up once a month as a group for breakfast. And I've also got a number of peers, whether ex-colleagues or just general Salesforce worlds, that I have ongoing catch-ups, like fortnightly catch-ups and things like that we catch up on, just on Zoom or Teams or things like that. And I think that helps stay in touch and give me those kind of outlets. Customer bases I'm close because it's a small, I don't have hundreds of customers, so we stay close with those as well. But I think it's just making sure you still stay in touch with your colleagues, have ongoing meetings with any mentors or peers or anything you've got. And, I'll be down at World Tour. Trying to go to Dreamforce now each year. And so it's trying to go to all of those events as well to help tick that social box that I do enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it is very different. Like, if you don't have like a daily stand up with a team, even just that, like if it wasn't for me making outbound calls and obviously answering my phone and stuff, like some days I could go a whole day without seeing anyone else other than my family. And like at some stages after COVID, I needed like more social engagement. Like I felt like I was just in my own head, in my own house the whole time. And I think it is actually like being proactive around that, because otherwise you can easily fall into these traps where you're just dwelling, you're just in this. But I guess things are going well with the business as well. So it's not so much dwelling, but it's just proactively making sure there are those outreach, making sure you're continuing to strengthen those relationships outside of the business and having some downtime that's still kind of work related, but not just smashing code or fixing problems and sending sales agreements and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think even your non-work social network is good. I'm fortunate to have some good friends up here as well that, we ongoingly catch up. They're not directly in a Salesforce world, but they're people that I can still talk about one of them does a lot of business, corporate sales type world. So I can even talk to him about the sales. So what's going on? What am I struggling with? So I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I think the harder things are going, the more you recluse back and you just, well, if I just do more hours, if I just sit more at the computer more, if I just bang out more, things will get better. On the flip side, I think it's the most important time you need to be able to just talk through things and step out of the business and have those. And I think that's sometimes the hardest thing because you do the opposite for when you need it the most.
Yeah, it's so true. I'd love to hear some of your conversation now, trying to explain to people what you do.
I hate the elevator pitch. So everyone's like, so what's your elevator pitch? And I'm the worst at the elevator pitch. It's like, the easiest one is at least if you say, do you know Salesforce? If they can say yes to that answer, you're in for a much easier time of talking about, it's a plugin that solves, and then you talk about marketing and it's like, well, you got emails and things. So there's a marketing platform and there's a customer management system and making those work better and surfacing all of the insights from the marketing platform to a sales or service team. It's like, oh, okay. If they're like, I don't know what Salesforce is, I don't really know what those systems are, you go, I run a software company.
Yeah, easy enough.
And you go as far as that.
Yeah. Like you've mentioned Data Cloud and having that, it's all part of what you do, like you're working with Marketing Cloud, Data Cloud. Because Data Cloud is newer than, correct me if I'm wrong, but newer than in terms of when you started, when the idea for the product came about, Data Cloud has come along since. So has that been something you've had to adapt with? And also, how do you see Salesforce's push into like Agentforce, AI, all of the new fun tech? Does that have any impact on your roadmap, do you think?
So Data Cloud was there. So Data Cloud has been around for a while, but it was a little bit more of a silent product that was more, it never got a lot of traction. So when I was at Xero, we were starting to evaluate Data Cloud. So it was definitely there, but nowhere near as prominent. Over the last, especially with Agentforce coming in. So over the last probably 12 months, Data Cloud has got a lot more airtime, much more adoption as well. So probably half of our customers have Data Cloud, which is, if you asked me when we launched a year ago, how many of our customers, what would their Data Cloud adoption be? I said, maybe a couple. Nowhere near the adoption that I'm seeing now. How much they're adopting and what they're doing with it is a little bit mixed. But it's certainly there, and it's certainly changing the way to think about things. There is a little bit of a risk to our product with some of these things in terms of relevance. The big difference is Data Cloud is still a bit of a generic product, and that's what Salesforce do. They build platforms, things for you to build on top of. So there's still a lot of work to make them do often what you need to do. Our big focus is kind of the complete opposite. It's very purpose-built, easy to set up niche products that will do exactly what you need within an hour. It's a very different philosophy than going, the answer from a Salesforce, yes, you could do that. Go get a bunch of consultants to go and build it for you. Us, it's like, click. So it'll, you'll have a subscription fee, but you're going to get that and you'll be up and running with it tomorrow with a highly specific product in that. And it's the same with Agentforce as well. Agentforce is a generalized agent. It's got a bunch of skills that out of the box it can do. But for you to build on top of those, you need to go and build on top of those. So, there's a lot of opportunities for us in that space as well in going, okay, how can we tie, say, Marketing Cloud very tightly with an Agentforce and give Agentforce Marketing Cloud-based skills with the click of a button, and an hour later, you've got all of these great capabilities, rather than the answer being, yes, you can do that. Get your developer to go write a whole bunch of Apex and integrate those, design it, architect it, and make those work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know that Data Cloud had been around for that long. But yeah, it's definitely obviously that and Agentforce are the big push. That's what we're hearing left, right, and center. So yeah, interesting. I guess we'll watch this space with how that evolves. Anything you miss about working on projects?
I think the team nature, like you mentioned. I'd say I've still got peers, like I said, so I can still run challenges by other peers that I've got in the ecosystem and everything like that. But that daily stand-ups, those very close connections that you have ongoingly, a little bit of the variety of the projects you might have, obviously, is very niche that we're in now. So every conversation, every day, everything I'm working on is centralized around one thing. Always different challenges coming up, but still always around. Whereas in the consulting world, it's Service Cloud one day, Sales Cloud, custom processes. It was data clouds. It was whatever, it was a lot of variety in what was going on. And that's a pro and a con. I do enjoy it's very draining being thrown at different things constantly all the time and staying on top of everything. So while I enjoy it, there's elements that I'm enjoying not having to worry about as well. But I think it's the peer nature. It's those constant stand-ups, those relationships you build from those constant interactions that you're having that I probably is something I do miss from that project world.
From what I know about you, I can imagine that as well. It's, that collaboration is important. So moving 10 customers now, what's the biggest challenge getting to 20?
I think continuing the marketing and the awareness journey. So I think there are definitely there's customers out there. I know there are, but it's the challenge of being right place, right time. And so where a lot of the customers, they might have had a project that they were implementing Marketing Cloud or doing something with it. If you weren't at that time when the budgets were allocated and you're in there sometimes, then sometimes you can miss the bandwagon and you're just not there. So I think the biggest challenge is, just continuing the awareness and finding those customers, because I think that's been the hardest thing for us as well, is once we find the right customer, once we go to trial, it's inevitable that they will buy. Like our success is phenomenal, but finding them, so the lead quantity is low, the lead quality is very high once we get there. So it's just continuing that, I think, and that will be 25. If we can double our customers, 10 to 20, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we were to sit down in a year's time, which knowing us, we probably will, what does it look like? Like, is that the goal to get to 20 people by this time next year? Or, sorry, not 20 people, 20
It's the opposite.
customers.
I don't want 20 people.
20 customers.
Yeah, I think if we could hit 20 customers and double, that would be, for me, a healthy type of, it's essentially a new customer every kind of 1 to 2 months. And that's a nice cadence to kind of go through in terms of the process. Sales, it takes a long time for these sales as well. We're not just talking about product development, you're not just talking about implementation, but simply doing calls, demos, trials. Most of our customers go to a trial, so we'll often install, implement. So there's a lot of energy that goes into that. So could we support more? Yes, but it comes with a lot more time and effort. So you start to fight against that pillar, which is trying to keep a lifestyle in there. I don't want a business. I've got a small family, young family, 13-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I want to spend time with them. I don't want to be 24/7 in the business, slogging it out, trying to support those types of growth. So if the end of next year, if the end of 25, we give you 20 customers, 20 happy customers that I can say, go on the App Exchange and give us a 5-star review type thing, and they happily go off and do it. And we're still relevant, so we're not seeing discussions of churn or we don't need your product anymore. If we can stay true to those 3 pillars by the end of this year, then be very happy.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, mate. Really, really pleased to see how things are going for you, and I'm sure that success is going to continue. So here's the next year, and here's the next episode.
Thanks again, as always, Ben.
Thanks, mate.